Hello, Shed Wars. Good morning. How are you today? So, I wanted to spend a little bit of time out in the garden today and talk about peppers. Just a couple of things. Here's our 2 pepper rows that we have. So we have cowhorn peppers and cayenne peppers and some other peppers down there. I can't remember what they are. And then there's a lot of bell peppers over here. Some banana peppers down at the end as well. But so these are all of our bell peppers, which are doing pretty good. Staying small and bushy, which is not a bad thing. One of the things I wanted to talk about is pepper flowers, because we've got flowers all over our peppers, or quite a bit of them. We've even got some peppers already. Peppers pollinate themselves, meaning they don't need another plant to pollinate them. They actually don't even really need a pollinator, although pollinators are always beneficial. The main thing they need is vibration, so that can come from wind, that can come from a pollinator, and most often does. But one thing you can do is, if you want to get good germination and almost guarantee that you're going to get a fruit, is come out here with a flower and just jiggle it a little bit. And what that does is, inside here, which you may not be able to see or may not be able to record, it actually takes the pollen and drops it down onto the stamen, which is in the same exact flower. It'll self-pollinate. Now, these aren't really open. It's better when they're open. But you can also, if you want to cross-pollinate, take like a Q-tip or something and, go from one to the other. We really don't want cross-pollination, but we don't plan on keeping the seeds from these peppers this year. So the fact that there are sweet peppers and different varieties are planted next to each other is not a big deal. It will not affect the fruit that year. So if you put hot peppers next to, or hot peppers next to sweet peppers, you will still get sweet peppers and you will get hot peppers, and they will not be hot sweet peppers or sweet hot peppers. The fruit from the same year stays exactly the same, even if you cross-pollinate them. What will happen, though, is if you save these seeds next year, those seeds will be a hybrid of those two. So it could be a really hot big pepper. You never know what you're going to get. It also could just not really grow at all. So protecting from cross-pollination is important if you're keeping the seeds. If you are not keeping the seeds, it really does not matter with peppers. Now, peppers can affect other plants potentially, but honestly, I've never had any problem with that. I'm sure other people have, like if you plant them near strawberries, you can get hot strawberries. But I've never had a problem with it planting near other things. But we've definitely got some flowers starting on our bell peppers, but they haven't opened up yet. And I can smell it on my hands. One thing I love is how amazing the smells of the plants are and how different they are. Like tomato plants have such a unique smell, and they smell so good. Now, we aren't growing as many peppers as we did probably even last year, which is okay. We grew a ton of peppers last year, although they were in a much smaller plot. So these will have a lot more room to grow. Probably have a few more insects, but they'll have a lot more room to grow. And hopefully they'll produce more because they're going to get better sun. They're going to be watered more. But one thing, peppers really don't like to be overwatered, for sure. I'd rather be dry. But we're definitely not growing as many peppers as we did last year. But last year we were growing super hots as well, and we grew way too many, for whatever that's worth. Again, you do want to grow more than you're going to need anyway. So we scaled it back a little bit, not on purpose. Our seedlings did not do as well as we had hoped that they would. Not really sure why. I would think it was just too cold, because we had a pretty cold spring, and they do like it to be warm. That's why you start them indoors. But in our cellar, it's not a conditioned space, so it did get pretty cold in there. It didn't freeze, but it stayed cool, and that will kind of stunt their growth, or they won't really pop up until it gets warm. You definitely want to keep them if you can. If you're doing them indoors, it's helpful. If you do it in a conditioned space, they will recover. So the ones that are smaller here are ones that we planted later, and we did that because we had a drought here, so I didn't want to plant them in the ground until we had gotten some rain, and so we did that. So they're all fine, they all survived, nothing died in transplant. The one bad thing about peppers though is they usually have a long growing season. Bell peppers aren't so bad, sweet peppers really aren't so bad. Usually the hotter that they are, the longer the growing season. So you'll have 150-day varieties, and unless you have a pretty long growing season, there are some people that just cannot grow peppers that way. Or you have to start them indoors and mostly keep them indoors. So, peppers in our shop vac. So what I did is I planted super hots. I have no idea what super hots these are, but I just know that they are. Or they're pretty hot. Some of them might be ghost peppers, but I think they're either Trinidad Scorpion or some other kind. So what I want to talk about is topping tomato or pepper plants. So if you've got a bunch of plants and you're going to have a lot of different plants, you may or may not care to do this, but if you want a plant to bush up and produce more, this is a great way to do it for peppers. So at the very top of a pepper plant, when it's growing, is it'll have a couple of leaves, and basically there's a growth stem that makes it grow all the way up, and it keeps growing up, and it may split out eventually, but it keeps growing up. What topping it is you leave a few leaves on here. You want to have 4 or 6, 2, 3 sets of leaves, so 6 or so, and you just cut the top off. And it's a seemingly dangerous thing, or feels dangerous, but what ends up happening is, since the plant no longer has that growth feeler up top, it'll actually start coming down here and growing out of the sides of the stems of the other leaves. And what will happen is this will actually branch out into a separate branch, and this will get much bigger, and each of those branches will be similar to this one branch you would have had you not done this. So you basically turn one plant into, as far as production, multiple plants. Now, it takes a little bit longer once you've done that, because obviously it has to grow more, but by the end of the season you get a lot more production. So, these would be probably considered, really they're kind of like suckers on tomatoes, but they'll actually grow out and produce. So these were some of our seedlings that were down in the house. They've got some aphid damage on them. The aphids, I think, have been taken care of for the most part, but some of the leaves are looking a little rough. These guys look okay, pretty good. But I put them in my pot here. I've actually got 4 of them in here. That's probably too many, but I'm gonna let them grow and see what happens. They'll compete for resources, but it won't be too bad, because I can just keep them over here. And this thing rolls around, which is super nice. So they are my only super hots I'm going to grow this year. I don't even know what they are. But yeah. If you want to grow a lot of peppers on a small amount of plants, absolutely top them. Don't be afraid. You're not going to kill the plant. I promise you that. I've never killed one. Yes, it is scary, but just go ahead and chop the top off of your plants, and they will grow more, for sure.